Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to welcome Brad Land to the show. Currently serves as New York City's comptroller. He was 12 years as city council and now running for New York City mayor as a Democrat. Primary date is June 24th, and it's continuing our series of having the candidates on for mayor. Comptroller Lander, nice to see you. Thanks so much for making time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be on your show.
So, look, you've served the people of New York City for more than a decade. I'm a New Yorker myself, so this is sort of like a job interview. I keep interviewing the candidates coming on, but why mayor now? Like, you've done a great job. You've really worked hard. I know a lot of people that know you from Brooklyn and as comptroller here in New York City.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I loved serving in the city council where I was able to make us the first city in the country to give living wage pay to Uber drivers and deliveristas and predictable schedules to fast food workers. We desegregated the middle schools in my district. And as controller, we've been the most bold of any public pension fund on climate, on housing, on workers' rights, even as we've gotten best in class returns for our retirees. But really, I thought that neither Eric Adams nor Andrew Cuomo should be running our city. And it was just as simple as that. I want honest leadership at City Hall, someone who's not corrupt. I want someone who will stand up and fight Donald Trump on behalf of our values and our budget and our healthcare and housing and our immigrant neighbors. And someone who knows how to run city agencies well so we could deliver a more affordable, safer, more inclusive and better run city. And so that's what I can do. And that's why I decided to run.
Sure, and we'll dig in a little bit into that. I saw you describe yourself as a tough nerd. Share with us what is tough. I have an idea what it means, but share with us what that means to you.
Yeah, look, I mean, the controller is a nerdy job. You know, I manage the pension funds. I watch out for the city budget. I audit all the city agencies. I love getting into the weeds of how government is working, how it's not working, what policy will make it better. So that's the nerd part. The tough part is when I see things that aren't working, I call it out. So when Elon Musk and Donald Trump stole $80 million from New York City, it was my office who found it and then got out loud and said, "You give it back." And like Elon Musk tried to tweet at me that day or whatever it is. So I take on big fights, you know, desegregating the middle schools in my district, doing a big rezoning so we could get more affordable housing, helping win congestion pricing, and then standing up to Trump. That's the tough part. And I really think that is what the city needs right now is like, on the one hand, someone tough enough to stand up for our values, but on the other hand, someone who really can make government work better because people are just fed up with a government that's not fighting for them, but also not actually delivering what they need.
Yeah, and I could tell you, listeners to my show, the idea of wanting New York Democrats who are fighters, and it's my show's national, but fighters is number one. There's no longer the fight between progressives versus moderates and people calling. It's fighters versus not fighters.
Yeah.
And Democratic base wants fighters. So that's important. On your website, you talk about safety in New York, making New York City safer. From your view, is New York unsafe?
Well, look, I mean, crime is down from its 2021 highs, but it's still up about 30% from where it was before the pandemic. We are one of the safest big cities in America, but if you talk to people about the subways, you get on the subway, you see someone who appears homeless and mentally ill. And maybe that day you don't think that person's a danger to you. And then you go home at night and you read someone in a psychotic episode push someone onto the subway tracks, or we had someone a few months ago get lit on fire. The next day you get on, maybe with your kid, and you're feeling anxious. So look, we don't have to be a city where thousands of our mentally ill neighbors sleep on the subways and sidewalks and stoops of our buildings. So, I have a plan to make the city be safer and feel safer. And a lot of it is by doing things like connecting homeless folks with mental illness to housing and services where, will be a city that is and feels safer. It'll also be one that's a lot more humane.
No, and to me, I think feeling safe in New York is subjective. It depends where you live, what's going on. Uh, I'm in New York. When you describe like having anxiousness or walking around, I'm like, I'm a New Yorker. This is what we have. Like there's always something making me uncomfortable. At the same time, it's part of New York. But I don't want others to feel uncomfortable in a point where they feel unsafe. Like,
Yeah.
I always have to be alert. We live in New York City. That's what I do.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I would say back on shootings and gun violence, that is really dramatically overconcentrated in Black and Latino and low-income neighborhoods. Just 4% of New York's 120,000 blocks. account for basically all the shootings in the city.
Wow.
So there are a lot of people that live in neighborhoods that don't have to walk around every day fearing gun violence. And then there are a set of neighborhoods where the trauma of gun violence is real. And, that doesn't mean the answer is like, flood the zone with stop and frisk, which I worked with Jumaane Williams back when we were in the city council to help end or at least dramatically reduce. But it does mean a real strategy for solving shootings, getting illegal guns off the street, and promoting the policies that will help communities be safer.
And I'm chatting with Brad Liner, New York City Comptroller, candidate for mayor. I know some people have asked you questions about you had said defund the police, and now you're saying about making New York safer. I actually think the evolution is part of being a human being and being a thinking elected official and public servant. There are different things over different times. Doesn't mean you're putting your finger in the air. It's like we evolve. New York evolves. It's a dynamic city. So, I mean, what do you say to people if anyone's listening? They go, "Oh, he used to be defund the police. Now he's about more policing," or
Yeah.
not. So what's your
Well,
reaction
first,
to
I
that?
really appreciate your asking it that way because, like, trying to learn, grow, be responsive to conditions is really important. In June 2020, after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were killed, there was a global and indeed a US outcry for accountability, a feeling that those killings, that there would not be any accountability and that something needed to happen and change. Unfortunately, what then happened didn't really promote that. There was this movement to defund the police. For the most part, it did not lead to less money going to police departments. It sure did not lead to more resources going into low-income Black or Latino neighborhoods for more youth jobs or more education or more mental health care. And it didn't really promote more accountability either. And I do think, and I've said this, I do think progressives, myself included, were slow to reckon with the feelings of rising disorder coming through and out of the pandemic. There was a big increase in crime and just all kinds of social breakdown. And I mean, of course, there was in that like once in a century episode where people were isolated and so many lost jobs, and there was such an elevation of mental health issues. And yeah, I think now it's worth helping get the city in a place that people feel safer and more comfortable with smart policies. So look, my number one public safety policy is ending street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, which I know we can do. But I think it is worth hiring, I'm not proposing increasing the budgeted headcount of the NYPD. I'm just proposing that we actually hire the headcount we've budgeted for. Right now, we're about 1,500 cops short.
Mhm.
And that's a big part of the reason why we have so much NYPD overtime and aren't able to, to sort of maintain just the basic schedules. And then I've got a set of policies that involve nonprofit community-based violence interrupter organizations. Those are groups that work in neighborhoods to try to reduce and stem violence. I think there are ways to reckon honestly, with the goal. Everyone wants to be safe and
Right.
everyone wants to be treated fairly by the criminal justice system. We have a long way to go on both fronts. And that's what people should expect is a mayor who sees both those things and is really committed to working hard and thoughtfully on both of them.
Yeah, I mean, look, New York's an evolving city. Uh, I was not fearful of crime despite statistics after COVID, but then friends were bringing it up to me and they felt unsafe. And then it became on my radar as a person, like, oh, what's going on for them? So things evolve. Another big issue that you talk about and other candidates we've spoken about is housing. Housing affordability in New York City, off the charts. We all know it. It doesn't matter where you live, whatever neighborhood, housing is too damn expensive. As a practical matter, what can you do?
Yeah. This has actually been the work of my whole career. I've been in
Mhm.
public office 15 years. Before that, I had a 15-year career in affordable housing, running two nonprofits that fight to protect tenants' rights and build and preserve affordable housing. So that's kind of what I've been doing. As city council member, I passed the Gowanus rezoning, where 8,000 new homes are going up, 3,000 genuinely affordable for low-income and working class families. And we made sure that the public housing nearby all got fixed up. So growth right now, I think, we need it. We need more homes, but a lot of times people don't feel that that's going to either make their neighborhood better or more affordable or be a real opportunity for them or their kids. So we did a lot of that work in Gowanus and we got most of the community board on board. As controller, the investment I'm proudest of with the pension funds is that when Signature Bank failed a couple of years ago, they had mortgages on 35,000 rent stabilized housing units in New York City, and they all could have been lost if those had been purchased by bottom feeders. So I teamed up with some of our asset managers. We bought the mortgages on all 35,000 units. Every single one is still affordable rent stabilized housing, and it's giving an 11% return for our teachers and nurses and firefighters and retirees. So that's the kind of leadership I'm going to bring to City Hall. I got a plan to build 500,000 homes over the next 10 years. Here's my favorite part of it, because the most affordable, it's challenging to make it affordable when the land is
Mhm.
privately owned. More housing helps. But if you can get city-owned land, you can really make it permanently affordable for rental or for homeownership. So, how many golf courses do you think the city of New York owns, Dean?
Is it 13 or 14?
You're very close. It's 12.
12. I
And
saw an interview with you talking.
I had no
To
idea it
be
was
fair.
that many when I started. And when
Right.
I ask, usually people say three, four, five.
Right.
So my plan is to leave 8 of them as golf courses. 8 is enough to get a tee time. But on
Sure.
4 of them, we could build 50,000 new permanently affordable homes, both rental and some affordable co-ops and homeownership, like the old Mitchell Lama program. That's a co-op program that made it possible for working class families to become affordable homeowners. So build a lot more housing, make as much of it as affordable as we can, and then protect tenants from being evicted. We passed a
Yeah.
law when I was in the city council to give a lawyer to every tenant facing eviction, but Eric Adams has totally bungled it, so it's only about 40%. And that means evictions are way up, mostly in neighborhoods in the Bronx and low-income communities around the city. So, yes, I will be, this is my whole career. I will be the best housing mayor that New York City's ever
Yeah.
had. We'll protect tenants, we'll get more housing built, and we'll do it in neighborhoods that people really love.
And if I have one suggestion, I'll just throw it out there. I don't live far from this really big building that has the word Trump on it. Now, if you would condemn that and then turn that into housing, that would be amazing. How many people
One,
live there?
yeah, I love that idea. I saw today there's an office building in Times Square that's converting to housing, so maybe we could do that.
Uh,
One thing that makes me sad, little sad about the golf course proposals, Trump used to have one of the golf courses
Yeah.
in the Bronx. It already got taken away from him, so by Bally's, but it's also in a floodplain, and so it would not be a good place to build new
And
homes,
I
sadly.
used to be avid golfer. I'm not as much. I just run out of time, but I played in many of the city courses. They're beautiful. And look, and if there's 12 or 12 of them, obviously there's probably some that are not being used much, and it could
Yeah,
be to housing or find other places. But housing is so important. I talked to elected officials around the country, and that was under the radar for the last few years. I would
correct.
ask them, "What's an issue not getting press that you hear from constituents?" Housing everywhere.
Yeah.
The gubernatorial candidates in Jersey, I've interviewed all of them, just
Mhm.
about housing everywhere. It's kind of remarkable where we live in this
Yeah.
corridor running of housing. I want to touch on a
And it's
few
going to
things.
get worse because Trump cuts, I mean, obviously Medicaid and climate
Mhm.
are, what are in the news, but the Trump cuts to housing are going to be devastating as well.
Certainly. For a lot of the immigrant community or people who are mixed status families, immigration is so important. And, I'm Muslim, I'm born here. My dad was an immigrant. A lot of people in my community are immigrants. That is off the charts about concerns,
Yeah.
even if they're here legally, just being an immigrant, they're worried Trump's ICE is going to come and take them.
Yes.
Mayor, what would you do to protect them?
Yeah. Let me give you the stats first, because I think that people don't really realize this. Of the 8 and nearly 1/2 million New Yorkers, 40% are foreign born or immigrants. 50% of New Yorkers live in mixed status households, including 1 million children. Like, this is the
Uh,
future of New York City. So it is the job of the mayor of New York to stand up and fight for those families. I went out when Ross Baraka was arrested a couple of weeks ago, and I happened to have the good fortune to be there when he got out. And he said people have been saying to him, well, why aren't you standing up for the people of Newark? Why are you standing up for immigrants? And he's like, everybody that lives in Newark is a resident of Newark. And that's how I feel about New York City. What a blessing. I'm running for the job to represent and protect and help house and, provide services for all of those New Yorkers, including all of those immigrant New Yorkers. I mean, you're Muslim, I'm Jewish. This city has been a safe haven for people from around the world, and it's our job to keep it that way. So I will stand up and fight Donald Trump and ICE. We will not allow ICE in our schools, our public hospitals, our shelters, our corrections system. That's a law we passed that I co-sponsored when I was in the city council. So the mayor's got to say it loud, not like obviously Eric Adams, like giving, whatever. I mean, don't even go down that path. But
right.
But it also has to be the case that all of our school receptionists and all the security guards at the entrances to our public hospitals and all of our NYPD officers have to be on board as well. One thing that was encouraging in Newark when I went out for that protest, it was Newark police officers who kind of were responsible for the scene outside the ICE facility. And it seemed pretty clear to me that in that instance, at least, they were on the side of these values of our diverse, inclusive immigrant cities.
Yeah, I mean, even people who are naturalized citizens are concerned. If they have an accent,
Yes.
they're concerned. If they don't look white, they're concerned. And that's the climate that Donald Trump and Tom Homan and Kristi Noem have created on purpose. It's a chilling climate that is not something that is consistent with my view of American values, and certainly not the melting pot. This is a beautiful city we
Yeah.
live
Oh, we
in.
have the Statue of Liberty out in the harbor. It's a responsibility to stand up for immigrant neighbors for those valid, diverse values and to this fascist president.
I know very much so. Chatted with Brad Lander, New York City Comptroller, running for mayor of New York. The primary date's June 24th. It's getting here. So a couple of things before we wrap up. I want to touch on Andrew Cuomo, who is leading the polls. We've invited Andrew Cuomo on. I would be very respectful, to be honest. I would ask him some questions like everyone else. He's not done any interviews with any journalist I know, frankly. There are Republicans who have run campaigns like this. I know in more red districts for Congress, I've had Democrats on saying they won't even talk to the press. Why won't Andrew, can you give us a sense, because you've called Andrew Cuomo a corrupt chaos agent with an abusive personality. So you're pretty clear where you stand on Andrew Cuomo. He won't talk to the media. I thought Democrats didn't view the media as the enemy. We view them as people who help be transparent and work together as public servants to get the message out about what we're about. He won't even talk to us.
I mean, I don't know if Andrew Cuomo is a Democrat. So, I mean, Andrew Cuomo is an Andrew Cuomo-crat. Like, he cares about exactly one thing, and
Right.
that is Andrew Cuomo. And I think he believes that his best chance of winning is by people not seeing him. Like, if he talks to people, if he engages with people, if the media ask him hard questions, they're going to ask about the sexual harassment. They're going to ask about the COVID nursing home deaths. They're going to ask about marking up the Department of Health report to undercount and protect his $5 million book deal. They're going to on and on and on. Ask about the money he took from the subways to upstate ski resorts. Asked just last week, DoorDash dropped $1 million in his super PAC because they want to roll back I mentioned New York became the first place to give living wage pay for deliveristas. That's 60,000 immigrant workers mostly who have living wage pay because of a law that I had the chance to pass. And now they're, more able to survive in the city. DoorDash is paying $1 million to his super PAC to get him to roll it back. So he is just always in it for himself. And he's showing every day what he would be like as mayor, and the fact that he won't talk to you or to any journalist, that he won't participate in any of the forums out in neighborhoods. Yeah, I mean, we have the information we need to know what he cares about, and it's not the problems of New Yorkers, it's only the problems of himself.
I think he should answer for the Department of Justice under Joe Biden. It wasn't a Republican that they had to report 13 women who worked for the state over a course of 8-year period were sexually harassed by Andrew Cuomo. He created an environment there that was toxic, to say the least.
Yep.
We had Lindsey Boland on, who was the first person to come forward. We told the Cuomo campaign, you can come on, not together, of course, to talk to us. Won't do it. And I hope New York voters, we're smart voters. I really hope they take a look at it. You also have slammed Cuomo for weaponizing anti-Semitism, even taking a horrible shot at you. You're Jewish. You're the most senior Jewish elected official. Tell us a little bit about what Cuomo did there in terms of weaponizing anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. Party has his own track record of anti-Semitism. He like attacked, we have these huts we have in our backyard called sukkahs on this holiday of Sukkot, a harvest holiday, and he called them fucking tree houses and complained about having to go. He was actually sued after COVID by some Orthodox Jews for anti-Semitic discrimination. But I think after October 7th, he just decided Jewish vulnerability was a good thing for him to take advantage of. So he joined Netanyahu's legal defense team. He created like a phony organization that never did anything except wrote one op-ed about anti-Semitism. And then he went into a synagogue on the Upper West Side of New York City, a city he hasn't lived in 25 years, and called me and the Zoran Mamdani, the Muslim assembly member also running, and the black speaker of the New York City Council, Adrienne Adams, all anti-Semitic essentially. just, transparently for his own purposes, trying to weaponize, their anti-Semitism is on the rise. As you know, we saw this horrible shooting in DC earlier this week. So Jewish New Yorkers feel anxious. And what's he doing? Trying to weaponize those fears. Yeah, in a way that I cursed him out in Yiddish that day because like that's what I do when I get pissed off. Um, but it's just galling. It's not going to make anybody safer. It's just going to keep cycling, feelings of anger and violence. And, to me, I love what New York City has been for Jews. I love what New York City is and has been for Muslims. I want it to be a place that's safe for everyone. People are going to have different points of view, of course, on Israel and Palestine. And that is as it should be. I mean, people feel passionately about it. I got my own very passionate feelings. I was the first Jewish elected official in New York to come out and call for a ceasefire, along with the return of the hostages. And, but leaving that aside, like leaving aside how one feels about the war, about the Middle East. This is a city where people have to work together and get along. And for him to kind of weaponize Jewish fear, weaponize anti-Semitism, try to use it as a cudgel against his opponents, including the highest ranking Jewish elected official in New York City, is just a shanda. It's a gross shame. And people should wake up to it because he'll weaponize anything he can. I joked that I honestly am not sure that it's anti-Semitic because I think he'll weaponize anything, for his own political gain.
Yeah, and some of his rhetoric about the Middle East is by design trying to divide, I think, the Jewish and Muslim community.
Yes.
And I'm very sensitive to that. I've done so much interfaith work over my lifetime. And I don't know who he's a friend of other than himself. And I say that objectively, like if he came on, he can make good points about anti-Semitism. We all should be united in fighting anti-Jewishness, any hate against Jews, and any hate against Muslims as well. And we as minority faiths have a lot more in common. And this is New York. It's a beautiful melting pot. I really find him to be, opportunistic in a way, which is to the point where I'm concerned about it. It's not just politics. Like what he would do to our community to score political points alarms me deeply. It's not about Palestine or Israel, nothing. It's about him being so craven. And maybe this is why he won't come on the show. But I would have said that. I would have asked him open and question. We're just having a conversation here, it feels like. So, but all right, so before we run out of time, Brad, if people want to find out more about your campaign, what's the website they can go to?
Great. Landerfornyc.com, LANDERFORNYC.com. Lots of great policies, lots of information. The election's on June 24th. So it's just a few weeks away. I hope people learn more. I hope they'll rank me first. I hope they will not rank Andrew Cuomo anywhere on their ballots. And I'm really grateful to you for the time.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much. I wish you the best with the campaign. It was nice chatting.
Nice to talk.